Hello, you're watching ITV News Meridian.
Your headlines in the southeast this Monday evening. A jury takes just over an hour to find Callum Wheeler guilty of murdering Kent Police Community Support Officer Julia James.
She'd been in the wrong place at the wrong time, out walking her dog when she was confronted by her killer.
Julia James had the right to walk her dog and to enjoy life's freedoms without fear of violence.
Oh mate, where are you up to?
How Wheeler's odd behaviour caught the attention of a local gamekeeper who filmed him carrying the murder weapon.
Julie was probably the most funniest person I ever met. I can't explain how much I love her. You have to feel that. You can't tell that in words. This guy's took it away from us.
And tributes this evening to a much-loved wife and mother who say life will never be the same without her. Good evening. A man has been found guilty of murdering Police Community Support Officer Julia James in a field in Kent. It took the jury just 1 hour and 10 minutes to reach their verdict.
Her killer, Callum Wheeler, ambushed 53-year-old Julia as she walked her dog in countryside near her home in Snowdown near Canterbury. Wheeler, who is 22, was described as angry and strange to jurors.
He had admitted killing her, but had denied the charge of murder. But the jury saw through him. His attack had been planned over many days and weeks. Julia was in the wrong place at the wrong time.
Well, Tony Green has been following the trial and joins us from Canterbury Crown Court. Tony, a lot of praise on the court steps this afternoon for Kent Police and understandably a lot of emotion from the family.
That's right. You see, there was never any doubt that Callum Wheeler was the man who killed Julia James. He admitted as much on the first day of this trial here at Canterbury Crown Court a week ago today. Kent Police described him as their own incredible suspect, but because he entered that not guilty plea to murder, jurors and members of Julia James's family had to sit through hours of graphic evidence and witness testimony. And when the moment came in the trial for Callum Wheeler to put forward his own defence, there wasn't any. The jury took little over an hour to return their verdict. From the public gallery in the direction of Julia James's family, you could hear the word yes being uttered. This from Paul James as a reaction on the steps outside Canterbury Crown Court.
Julie was probably the most funniest person I ever met. I can't explain how much I love her. You have to feel that. You can't tell that in words. This guy's took it away from us. But she'll never leave me. She'll never go from any of us. Oh, she's just amazing. I'm so proud of her. The work she did was just amazing to help so many other people, women particularly, that were in danger from men, bad men I'll call them. And I cannot be as proud as I am. And we've got what we deserve today.
It's a huge loss. What have the community lost by losing Julia as well?
Oh, they've lost not just a friend. The communities are like family where we live. Because she was just so much of a person. She was massive. Yet she stood so small, but she was massive. She stood 10 foot tall every time she did something or talked something and helped somebody. And people saw that. And what she emanated in her love and her affection to everybody. It just oozed into our family. What Julia put to all of our family. I just hurt so much.
Well, when the Crown prosecution put this case together, they were expecting Callum Wheeler to dispute all of the evidence. As it happened, everything that was put before the jury was agreed evidence, and the defence didn't cross-examine a single witness. Nonetheless, this is a big success for the CPS. This is the reaction today from Martin Yale, the junior prosecuting barrister.
Julia James was a loving mother, wife, colleague and friend. Her loss is greatly felt. Nothing can make up for what Callum Wheeler has done, but we hope today's guilty verdict can bring some solace to those who knew her and loved her. Callum Wheeler's actions were cowardly and callous. Julia James had the right to walk her dog and to enjoy life's freedoms without fear of violence. Callum Wheeler's actions before, during and after the attack left absolutely no room for doubt that he was the man responsible for Julia's death.
Well, because all of the facts put before the jurors was agreed evidence, there was very little for them to deliberate upon when they were sent out by the judge this afternoon. The only real issue was, did Callum Wheeler have the intent to kill? And obviously their verdict was yes, he did.
OK, Tony, for now, thank you. But we will have more from Tony at Canterbury Crown Court in a few moments' time. Well, the police investigation was meticulous, time-consuming and involved advances in the latest technology.
Smartwatch data provided crucial clues which helped catch the killer. But as Kit Bradshaw now reports, the sense of shock and bewilderment that gripped the little communities of Aylsham and Snowdown in East Kent remains.
We're all shocked. Such a lovely, quiet place to live.
She was a hugely devoted, passionate individual who was completely committed to serving the people of Kent.
It's a regular place that I walk with my dog, and it's just unbelievable it could happen on your doorstep.
This is tragic beyond words, and across the country and in policing we are all grieving for Julia.
A well-respected and long-serving police community support officer. Julia James was murdered walking near Woodland, less than a mile from her home. The 53-year-old had been with Kent Police since 2008. Her most recent role, supporting victims of domestic abuse in the Canterbury area, meant she was working from home in the hamlet of Snowdown on Tuesday the 27th of April last year. At 2:12 p.m. she took a break to take her dog Toby for a walk. Setting out from her back garden gate, her route from her home in Snowdown across the fields towards the nearby village of Aylsham would normally take her around 40 minutes. Detectives were able to plot the exact path she took using data recovered from the smartwatch she was wearing at the time. She walked through the trees to a spot where she liked to watch the butterflies before turning around. This is where it's thought she came face to face with her attacker. Her Apple Watch recorded a sudden spike in her heart rate from 97 beats per minute to 145, and she began to run towards the open fields. The data recorded no more movement after 2:35 p.m, with her heart stopping minutes later. It would be an hour and a half before her body was found by walkers just after 4 o'clock. For weeks following the discovery of Julia James's body on the edge of these woods, a large section of this countryside remained sealed off as officers scoured every inch of these fields for possible clues which could catch her killer.
I knew straight away this would be classified as a Category A murder investigation, which effectively means it was of grave public concern and would require a significant amount of police resource to identify, locate and arrest the individual concerned. Julia sustained catastrophic head injuries to the back and top of her head. She stood no chance of survival.
But for 10 long days the police had no suspects. Then a breakthrough came with the release of this photograph.
Somebody knows who that man is. If that person is watching, please make contact with us. We believe that you have crucial information.
By that evening they had a name, Callum Wheeler. Officers moved in to arrest him at the house the then 21-year-old shared with his father and brother in Aylsham, just a mile and a half from Accolt Wood.
Callum, right, got him, I've got him. Right. Okay. Calm. Callum, no one's going to hurt you. Calm. Nobody's going to hurt you. Calm.
In his bedroom, officers found a jack handle, a piece of railway equipment almost a metre long and weighing around 3 kilos. Forensic analysis would later find traces of Julia James's blood on it and on Wheeler's clothes and shoes.
Why am I being dragged into this for?
On the way to custody, Wheeler appeared frustrated.
Why do people have to be talked to because they were there?
Because somebody's been murdered, so somebody's dead.
Wheeler was unemployed and not in education, described by detectives as a loner. He was caught partly thanks to the quick thinking of a local gamekeeper.
Oh mate, where are you up to?
The day after the murder, they spotted him walking not far from the crime scene, with a large object sticking out of a holdall, what we now know was the murder weapon. When challenged, Wheeler ran off and the witness dialed 999.
I'm reporting, it might be nothing to do with, but there's a suspicious fella I've just approached and he's running off, and there's been a death at Ackholt.
Before he fled, the gamekeeper was able to take this high-quality photo, which would later be used in the public appeal.
When you're in a rural area, of course, it's very difficult.
It's not clear why Wheeler was walking close to the crime scene with the murder weapon 24 hours on, but it doesn't surprise a former senior detective.
It's not unusual for an offender to return to the scene of the crime or to be nearby. It's not unusual that when the police make appeals for people to come forward to help search perhaps an area like this, that the offender may put themselves forward as part of that team.
This was a massive investigation for the Kent Force, involving 1,100 officers. They seized 2,300 pieces of potential evidence, including 534 video clips, totalling 6,700 hours. That footage allowed detectives to plot the route Wheeler took from his home across the East Kent countryside on the day of the crime. Despite the rural location, he was caught on a variety of cameras. That railway jack seen protruding from his bag. The trial heard that Julia James and her husband had seen a man matching Wheeler's description acting suspiciously in Ackholt Wood in the months before her death.
What's your phone number, Callum?
And the police had been dispatched to Wheeler's home 10 days before the murder after he made an abandoned 999 call.
Are you okay?
Yeah.
Callum?
Well, hang on a minute. Why am I even talking to you? Go on, get lost.
Because you phoned us,
Go
Callum.
on, get lost, mate.
Something he dismissed as an accident at the time. A public reconstruction of Julia's last movements didn't lead to any witnesses who'd seen her that day, and this distant, grainy CCTV was the only footage captured of her on that dog walk. It was her Apple Watch which held the answers to what happened next.
It's the first time I've had smartwatch evidence in a prosecution. It was crucial. It charted Julia James's movements from the moment she left the house until the time of her death. And it also enabled CCTV evidence and witness evidence and the like to be pieced together to build a strong and compelling case that Callum Wheeler was the person who was responsible for Julia James's death. As far as we're aware, it's completely an indiscriminate attack, and why he attacked her remains unclear.
In July last year, family, friends and colleagues gathered at Canterbury Cathedral. Julia's son and daughter both gave readings, while the funeral service was led by the priest of the local Roman Catholic Church.
For the family, I think the space between the terrible news and the funeral was quite a help. For somebody being killed walking their dog, someone who's doing good to society, was such a big event that doing it, borrowing the cathedral and the cathedral making us welcome, said something.
For some local residents, the sense of security they once felt here has been lost.
It's changed me a lot. I love the countryside. I was brought up in the country, and that I personally wouldn't walk a dog by myself, especially over the fields. I think it's just shocked the community more than anything, and I think it will for a long time.
Many people in this part of Kent still have questions about what happened that day, some of which are unlikely to ever be fully answered. Those who loved Julia say she wasn't just a member of the police family, but a wife, mother and grandmother. They'll remember her brilliant sense of humour and her beautiful smile. Kit Bradshaw, ITV News, Aylsham.
Let's return now to Tony Green at Canterbury Crown Court, where in the last hour Julia James's son and daughter have spoken to us. Tony.
Yes, that's right. They came outside of court and paid tribute on the steps outside, and they spoke about her sense of humour and her beautiful smile, but also what she was like as a mother. And then she gave an extended interview to my colleague John Ryle.
It's what we've been waiting for. It's been a long time coming. If it was the right verdict, I don't think he should ever be allowed out, but that's in due course.
yeah, I think it's just the result we were hoping for. All the hard work from Kent Police, from Alison Morgan, has all come to fruition. I'd like to see her feel happy, but I feel numb if I'm honest, but it's absolutely the right outcome.
And a very swift verdict which suggests that the jury had complete contempt for that defence, such as it was.
Yeah, absolutely. I don't think he's done himself any favours at all. And having been taken through all the evidence prior to coming to trial, I found it very difficult to imagine a scenario in which he would be found not guilty. I think the evidence was overwhelming.
And I know that you're both keen, perhaps you're keen in particular because you're an officer. You're keen to thank the work that Kent Police did.
Absolutely, been blown away by the work. We couldn't be here without them, and we're so grateful for all the hard work that they've done.
So tell me a bit about your mother, both of you. A very sunny character.
Oh, she was amazing. She was really if she'd walk in a room, she'd light up the room with her smile. She's a sense of humour. She had such a mischievous sense of humour, didn't she?
Yeah, she did.
She was the best. The amount of times we've been in stitches together in the kitchen, just over the smallest of things, and there's a hole that's there and it's never going to be filled.
And the thing that just seems to kind of heap injustice on injustice is that she did a lot of work with victims of violence, didn't she? Tell me about that.
Yes, she helped victims of domestic violence. She was somebody who really cared a lot about people. She's very invested in people. I often speak to her on the phone and she'd be very invested in people's individual stories, wanting to help people. But she was a caring person, and that's the job that she's chosen, was to help people. It just so happens that she's obviously fallen victim to a man. She's been in a vulnerable position, a man that she had never met before. You couldn't ever anticipate something like this would ever happen, really.
And do you sort of feel her presence, her influence?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Every day. I think certainly I speak to all my friends as well. I think you end up turning into your mum, don't you? I can hear her in the things that I say and the things that I do, and if I'm lucky I'll turn out to be a woman just like her. She wasn't one of life's victims. She was a feisty woman full of life, and she's someone that is worth remembering, not for what has happened to her and how she's died, but for how she was in life, because she was a very special person.
What would you say directly to Wheeler?
I have nothing to say to Wheeler. I think that he is a very dangerous man. I think that my mum was in the wrong place at the wrong time, and that today he's been held accountable for what he has done to my mum. But that will never be good enough. But what I do think is important, like I said earlier, is that he's made it clear that he had intentions to go forward, attack other women, rape other women, and ultimately kill other women. I think my mum has saved lives by losing her life, and I think that Kent Police, Alison Morgan, have saved a lot of people. He was going to go on to kill people, in my opinion.
Yeah, I agree.
What would you say to Wheeler?
I wouldn't say anything to him. No. I wouldn't give him the pleasure of even hearing... I wouldn't give him the pleasure of hearing my voice. I wouldn't let him know... I just wouldn't say anything to him. He doesn't deserve to be spoken to in my eyes.
He's a man who appears to have enjoyed some of the proceedings in court, who seems to have gloated, who seems to have at points been laughing, acting up. So at no point would any of us wish to give him any satisfaction, I don't think.
Well, Julia's family may draw some comfort from the fact that Callum Wheeler was convicted today. As far as his sentence is concerned, that's been adjourned for another day. Once the jury returned their verdict, it was able to be disclosed that Callum Wheeler is actually being treated at Broadmoor Psychiatric Hospital, and a full consultation with the doctor who's treating him there needs to take place before the proper sentence can be carried out.
Tony, live in Canterbury, thank you. And the ITV Evening News continues here with the national and international news at 6:30 with more Lucrezia Millarini.
Coming up, Boris Johnson in Belfast for Brexit crisis talks. The Prime Minister's preparing to tear up parts of the Northern Ireland Protocol, hoping to end the political stalemate at Stormont, but the EU is likely to object. Also ahead, Colleen Rooney tells the High Court why she has suspicions about Rebecca Vardy. Could your energy bill go up 4 times a year? The proposal for a more frequent review of the price cap. Plus, the British mountaineer once told he'd never walk again on climbing Everest for a record 16th time. Join me at 6:30.
Next tonight, 8 Greenpeace activists have been arrested after they stopped a tanker unloading a shipment of Russian oil at Grays near the Dartford crossing.
The protesters blocked a jetty, which meant the ship couldn't dock. Phil Hornby reports.
Oh, hello there. Good evening, sir. My name's Frank from Greenpeace. There is a Greek-flagged vessel, Andromeda, coming up the Thames at the moment to offload Russian diesel. I have to let you know that we have occupied that jetty. We also have a climber up the discharge pipes.
The tactics used by Greenpeace have always been controversial. For them, all oil imports are bad. But when what they're blocking is Russian oil, they hope more people will support their direct action. 33,000 tonnes of Russian diesel due to offload here at midnight last night. But the protest meant that didn't happen. The tankers, though, keep on coming.
We have tracked multiple tankers and we've seen that over 2 million barrels of oil have come in from Russia since the beginning of the war. That's worth £250 million. And we know that this is having a really direct impact in funding the war in Ukraine.
The Russian economy depends largely on other countries buying its energy. Last year, 9% of UK oil imports came from Russia. Because of the war in Ukraine, those imports are now being phased out. But that won't happen completely until the end of the year. So groups like Greenpeace are taking the law into their own hands. And it's not just them.
We'll try and stay here for as long as possible to make sure that these tankers don't come back in. But you know, even if it's not Greenpeace, we know we've seen unions such as Unite and Unison turning tankers around because dockers have simply refused to unload it.
There were arrests last night, and today the government told us there's absolutely no excuse for Greenpeace's disruptive actions, which are wholly unacceptable. But Russian oil will continue to arrive at southeast ports for the next 7 months, and campaigners are warning this protest won't be the last. Phil Hornby, ITV News.
A body has been found in the search for a man from Sussex thought to have fallen from a boat off the Dorset coast 2 weeks ago. Police are awaiting formal identification but believe the remains to be those of 24-year-old David Hoare. A 19-year-old man from Southampton arrested on suspicion of manslaughter remains released under investigation. Mr Hoare's family have raised more than £5,000 for the RNLI.
A prolific burglar has been jailed after he was caught on CCTV ransacking a property in Sheppey. Alfie Chambers broke into a house in Sheerness but only left with a pint of milk. The 61-year-old also bought cigarettes and alcohol at a shop using a stolen cash card. He'll serve more than 2 years in prison.
The Dean of Canterbury retires at midnight. The eve of his 75th birthday, Dean Robert became known for his daily reflections on video during the pandemic with impromptu appearances from his animals, including cats and geese. He served an extra 5 years at the cathedral after being given permission by the Archbishop and says he'll miss Canterbury greatly.
In sport, Kent Cricket have been paying tribute to former county star Andrew Symonds, who died in a car crash at the weekend. The club held a minute's silence before the final day of their match against Surrey, with chairman Simon Phillips saying Symonds was one of the most popular Kent players of the modern era. There were also tributes in the 46-year-old's homeland of Australia. Symonds played for Kent between 1999 and 2003. Right, let's turn our attention to the weather. Holly is here. Holly, some impressive images in the night sky last night. Unless you were trying to sleep, of course, and it might have been a little bit annoying.
Not so good. I mean, we didn't get the worst of it, but take a look at this. This was a plume of warm, moist, humid air coming up through the continent, and all of those flashes there, lightning flashes, of course. There were thousands across the Channel and moving up into southern England. As I say, the worst of it a little bit further west than us, but we certainly saw them. An amazing shot here from Andy Gardner, Brighton West Pier there, just looking spectacularly lit up in the lightning last night.
And there was also something else to see, a super blood moon.
That's right. So super because it was a little bit bigger than normal, and blood because eventually it turned a dusky red colour. Now, I think the weather probably put paid to most people seeing it properly. This is a composite shot from Brian Mills. He did see the first stages of the eclipse. You can see it there, the moon entering the Earth's shadow. If we'd been able to see that final stage, this is actually from the last lunar eclipse, you can see there that it would have turned that red, dusky colour. And that's basically the light from the sun coming through the edge of the Earth's atmosphere. And we're seeing the colour there from all the sunrises and sunsets around the world. So it would have been amazing if we'd seen it.
That explains. Thank you so much. Well, let's get your full forecast now with all your details. Here she is. It's Holly.
Feels like home, whatever the weather. Valent Boilers and Heat Pumps sponsors ITV Meridian Weather.
All looking quite changeable, I think, into the coming days, or that's the word I've gone for anyway. And by that I mean some warm sunshine to be had, but equally we could see spells of rain, and at times they could be heavy and indeed thundery as well. So we've got a general flow coming up from the south, so hence it's quite warm. Later on tomorrow, though, this feature comes through, that could bring some outbreaks of rain, and then later on Wednesday we see a feature coming up, and that could bring some quite heavy rain, and also the risk of gusty winds and some thundery activity too. Now, all of this is slightly uncertain in terms of the timing and the detail. But out there at the moment, not a bad end of the day, a bit of a breeze around, some sunshine to be had as we push into tonight. The breeze tends to drop a bit lighter. We could well see some mist and fog forming, and temperatures shouldn't fall away too far. I think double figures for most as we start tomorrow morning. And it should be a lovely bright start to the day. Any mist and fog will lift and clear. So lots of sunshine overhead, a lighter breeze around for tomorrow compared to today as well. A little bit more cloud will drift in perhaps as we head through the day, but it's likely to be the warmest of the year so far, with temperatures pushing up to around about 24 degrees for some of us inland. But later on into the evening, we do see this likelihood of rain pushing in from the west. Our high tide times, we've got Sheerness there at 1:48 and again at 2:15 into the afternoon. So both for Tuesday and Wednesday, I'm denied a bit in terms of whether to put a sunny spell or a shower, because on both days later on into the evening, we're likely to see some outbreaks of rain. Later on Wednesday, that rain could be quite heavy, gusty winds and the risk of some thundery activity as well, but probably turning that bit quieter as we head into Thursday. Enjoy your evening. Take care.
Valent sponsors ITV Meridian Weather.
Hello, summer. Piri sponsors ITV Pollen Count.
And let's take a look at the pollen levels. Well, high conditions, unfortunately, for hay fever sufferers into the coming days. A lot of oak pollen, some birch, and also starting to see grass pollen rising now as well. Have a lovely evening. Bye-bye.
And just a reminder, you can keep up to date with all our stories in the South East by going to our website, itv.com/Meridian. In just a moment, hear the ITV Evening News with Lucrezia Minorini.
That's it from us for the time being. I'm back with a late update just after 10:30. But for now, from the team, thanks for watching.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.